Good evening, everybody, and thank you for attending tonight. My name is Timothy McGonigle. I'm the managing partner here at the law offices of Timothy McGonigle. I've been handling insurance claims for more than 40 years for policyholders, from the inception of the claim to jury verdicts and appeal. Attending this LinkedIn session is also Thomas Foote of my office. Tom has significant experience handling insurance claims and disputes and is a great strategist for helping insureds obtain their full policy benefits. In light of the recent wildfires in Southern California, many homeowners have been contacting us to discuss their coverages under their policies. We thought it would be helpful for us to discuss tonight how to navigate these insurance claims after the wildfires and discuss some of the important issues that homeowners will face. Our goal is always to make sure that the victims of these fires obtain all the benefits that they're entitled to, either from the insurance companies or from the third party Edison. Anything less would victimize them a second time, which is not acceptable. One thing that's for sure is there's a lot of uncertainties when dealing with insurance companies in these situations. Many policies are different and have different type of coverages, so it's always important to take a look at those. Oftentimes we do consult with all lawyers and clients on insurance issues on a confidential basis. And if you ever have a question or you'd like to bounce an idea off of us, give us a call for a discussion and confidential discussions. We're always here to help. If we go to page 2 of the PowerPoint, Diane, I want to just go through the agenda that we're going to talk about today. And essentially what we're going to do is walk through the process of making a claim under the insurance policy and some of the options and ideas that ought to be looked at to make sure that the policyholder gets the benefits as quickly as possible in terms of either relocating their property or rebuilding and obtaining full benefits under the policy. That's key for us. And we'll also talk about deadlines to bring claims against the insurance company as well as third-party tortfeasors. And on the next slide, if we take a look at that, the most important point initially is to obtain a complete copy of the policy, and that's very important, and it's easy to get now from the insurance agent, but make sure it has all the endorsements. And once you obtain a copy of the policy, make sure the insured has also filed a claim, not only with the agent, but also the insurance company, so they can get the process going to rebuilding their homes, remodeling their homes if necessary, and also getting back to life as it was before the fire.
I will just say, hopefully, if you with a private insurer, you'll get some sort of response from them. Our understanding is that Fair Plan is so backed up that they're not very good at getting back to people right now, but I think that should hopefully improve soon.
That's again key. Just keep calling them and try to get your agent to call them, especially Fair Plan, and try to get a live person on the phone so you can get your claim process moving. If we could go on to the next slide. The primary dwelling coverage under the policy, for the most part, will be replacement cost types of coverage, which is replacement of your home at today's prices. Some policies have actual cash value, which is cost of replacement less depreciation from the date the home was purchased. So that's why it's important to look at the policy just to make sure you know what kind of coverage you have. It's also important to make sure, we'll talk about it, that you hire the appropriate professionals to guide you in reaching those determinations as to exactly how much replacement cost coverage you're entitled to or actual cash value. And many policies do have extended dwelling coverage, which are additional amounts of coverage that are there just in case your house costs more to build than what the original dwelling coverage provided for. Typically, it's a percentage, but it does give you more comfort that you'll be able to rebuild. There's also structural coverage, which is generally 10% of the dwelling coverage, but it'll cover carports, sheds, pools, and barns. If we go on to the next slide. One of the important things about insurance is in the 2004 time period, the insurance code was modified. So if an insured did suffer a complete loss, the insured has the right to either rebuild or relocate after a total loss. And why that's important is previously, after the Berkeley fires, many insureds did not want to rebuild, and there was issues with the insurance companies as to whether or not they would have the right to rebuild or relocate to another area. And why that's important is many insureds may not want to rebuild, or may have concerns that their property will not be rebuilt in the type of area where they wanted to live in the first place, or for safety concerns, they just would not want to rebuild there. And it's important to know that many carriers will pay upfront for the entire relocation coverage if the house is destroyed. And you want to follow along the same lines that you would for rebuilding, just in terms of determining the relocation amount. You'll need, again, your professionals, a contractor, structural engineer, and possibly a landscape professional to come up with the actual replacement cost or actual cost value of the property. And one of the important points I think for insureds to know is that many carriers do use Xactimate software to estimate the cost to repair or rebuild homes. And we've seen that a lot in the past with State Farm and some of the other carriers, that the Xactimate is the primary source that they use for rebuilding costs. And that's why, and to address that, the policyholder should either hire a public adjuster or a contractor that's familiar with Xactimate and the actual cost of building materials, equipment, and labor pricing, as that can be a challenge in situations such as we're dealing right now, where there's going to be expected an increase in building material costs, equipment costs, and labor costs as a result of all the homes that need to be rebuilt.
Yeah. So just to sort of emphasize that point, I think you really do need to do the work to come up with a number of your own, because if you don't, all you're going to have is the insurance company's numbers. And those are based on the software that Tim's talking about called Xactimate, which is just notoriously low on costs, and it's out of date. And there's a lot of ways that it can really be used against you. So unless you have your own numbers from reliable people, you could get stuck with their numbers, which you want to definitely avoid that.
And there are some statistics that are available that have concluded that Xactimate numbers are generally 30% lower than the actual costs that the insured incurs. So you definitely want to make sure you have those professionals available for you. Some of the problems with Xactimate that we've set out here is it was really developed for tract housing, not custom housing, and uses generic pricing. And many homeowners have building materials in their homes and other items that are specialty items, especially cabinetry and other items that are more specialized and aren't part of normal construction. And that should increase the value of what the insurance company should be paying you. And oftentimes the Xactimate is just, it takes a look at the general costs in the area, but it does not properly reflect increases in costs of building materials, labor and materials, and other materials, and can result, as Tom mentioned, in a significant underpayment to the homeowners. And what I want to point out is to prove that, if you read the warranty under Xactimate, it specifically says that it does not warrant the actual price data, and it specifically states as intended to be a representation of historical information to be used as a baseline for creating an estimate. So when you're using that, you really want to have somebody who's very familiar with it, either, as I mentioned, a contractor or a public adjuster who knows Xactimate and can go ahead and challenge the insurance company and get them to pay the additional amounts that you're entitled to.
Yeah, I know a lot of people might not have any experience with public adjusters. There are good ones and there are bad ones out there. I had a personal experience where we had a fire loss in a condo that I own, and the HOA hired a public adjuster, and they explained to me the way they would plan to do business, which is they said, well, we charge 20% of the claim, but we always manage to get the price up well above that, so it doesn't really end up costing you anything. And in that case, it actually ended up being true. I was a little skeptical when he told me that, but it actually ended up being the case. It didn't cost the HOA anything, and they did a lot of good work for us. But by the same token, if you can get a contractor to do that who isn't going to be charging you 20% for his efforts, that's even better.
Another part of the coverage that under the homeowners policies is coverage for personal property. And oftentimes we're finding these days that the carriers are actually, especially in a total loss or significant damage to a dwelling, they're paying 50% of the dwelling coverage up front. So one of the things the insured wants to do is you definitely want to provide a detailed list of personal property. Sometimes that can be very hard. You can go back and look at photographs and receipts, but sometimes those may not be available. So what we recommend is, especially in a total loss situation, refer to department store registries to help you prepare a list of personal property lost as well as the values.
Like a buyer registry type thing where you can just go in and you can put down, every item that you would have in a typical kitchen.
There's also coverage for ordinance code upgrades. It's usually 10% of the dwelling coverage. Tom, do you have any additional comments on that?
No, except that can be inadequate in some cases because new houses they're requiring you to have things like solar panels and stuff like that. So that's the sort of code upgrade that can be very expensive. Fire sprinklers are now mandatory, so stuff like that.
So again, just in terms of your replacement cost coverage, you want to make sure that you have the adequate contractor and professionals to help you prepare up your damage estimate. There's also coverage of the policies for alternative living expenses, and essentially this is coverage for additional costs you may incur being out of the home, and it'll include temporary housing, costs of meals. For example, if you incur additional costs as a result of having meal deliveries or takeout, those are the type of items that are covered. Insurance companies are required to advance 4 months of what they call this is ALE, additional living expense. But we're finding a lot of insurance companies, especially in a total loss, are advancing 1 year. Typically, these coverages give 3 years of coverage, depending on what your policy provides for. Many policies have a dollar amount of coverage. So it's important that whether it's 2 years, 3 years, that you factor in the consideration that rebuilding will take time. I think the estimates are probably more than 2 years, maybe 3 years, but you want to make sure you calculate your ALE and put it out over a certain period of time so you're not caught short having to be out of the house but not having any monetary support for yourself. Tom, any thoughts about the ALE?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. Next slide, Diana.
Yeah, I can talk about this one. This is debris removal. It's kind of a hot topic because it's the first thing that most people are having to deal with physically. So a lot of policies have 5% sort of on top of the dwelling coverage that's earmarked for debris removal. And there's a few sort of little hitches with that. So first of all, the EPA is going to come and they're going to remediate the toxic stuff for free right away. I don't see any reason why anybody wouldn't take advantage of that. Then LA County is also offering to remove the property, basically to scrape it. And if you participate in that program, which I think most people probably will end up doing, then you have to assign whatever the debris removal coverage is from your policy to the county because they're gonna collect that. So in most cases, if it's 5% over the dwelling limits, it's not really an issue because it's not going to have any impact on the coverage for the dwelling itself. I was a little concerned though, because some policies they include it inside the dwelling limits. And I was afraid that could possibly interfere with your ability to max out your dwelling limits. But I just noticed today, I looked it up and the insurance commissioner just issued some guidance on that saying that the county can only tag that insurance if you've already basically been fully repaid. So your house was rebuilt, you got everything out of it that you could, and if there's money left over, then the county can go after that for the debris removal money. And frankly, that's going to be a very rare occurrence because most people are underinsured.
And Tom, how does this covers? How is that impacted by the integrity of the structure of the home, the foundation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So you are going to have some decisions to make. One is, do you want them to scrape your foundation or not? And the only person that can tell you whether that foundation is reusable is a structural engineer or somebody like that. I think in most cases it probably won't be. But nevertheless, you probably do want to check in with a contractor, structural engineer, and have them look at the foundation and tell you, is this something that we can reuse? Because if it is something reusable, obviously you don't want to scrape it. I also think there's parts of the LA County, you should need to read the fine print on the LA County program, because there are certain things that they may not remove, like a pool. If that needs to be removed, I don't know. Maybe it doesn't need to be removed. It's full of water. Maybe it wasn't damaged. I don't know. But you do need to check that, because there may be some parts that you do have to get into your policy. If you have to come out of pocket, then you have to go into your own policy and hit the debris removal coverage.
Obviously, I think the key is to get everything prepared up front. And just in terms of who to hire in terms of professionals, would you think a structural engineer would also be important to have on board early on in the claim process to make sure your claim gets adjusted quickly and the rebuild process gets going?
I think it would be a good idea.
One of the other coverages available too for many insurance policies are shrubs and replanting. Many policies cover for that. And I think it's important as part of the claim process up front is get your contractor or your public adjuster, but also have a structural engineer ready and take a look at everything so you have that done. But also you may want to consider either getting photos and estimates from a garden supply company to substantiate your loss, or if you have a significant loss, hire a landscape professional right away and get your numbers together. Because I think that'll lead to it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You get like a landscape architect if you have, significant plantings. You'll be shocked at how expensive it is to replace those.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think those three professionals, hiring them early on and getting them on board, I think will result in a much quicker rebuild and a payment of the insurance benefits. Some policyholders have California Fair Plan. This is something I have. It's policies that are written in wildfire areas that are high risk. For example, I was canceled by State Farm last year, so I'm with Fair Plan. The coverage is $3 million for dwelling coverage, but structural coverage is less than that. It's normally around $2.3 million.
Yeah, the maximum coverage. A lot of people don't even have that high limits.
Yeah. It sometimes some of it, you just got to read the policy. Some of it will cover replacement cost coverage. Other policies provide for actual cash value. So you have to take a look at that. And if it is actual cash value, depreciation is deducted. So you need to check your policy. Next, there's also some items that Fair Plan will not cover. It will not cover personal property. It does not cover ALE, additional living expenses. And the normal policy does not cover code upgrades.
But you do need to check your policy on those, because there's boxes that are checked. So look, see which box are checked.
Yeah, all the policies have different coverages, so it's important to look at those coverages Tom mentioned. Key points when dealing with the insurance carrier. Tom, you want to take this one?
Sure. I think Tim's already hit some of this, but keep everybody informed, including your mortgage lender. It's very important. Have detailed conversations with the adjuster. Also document your conversations with the adjuster. I think it's really, document all communications by email. It's great where you can just send a follow-up email. Hey, Mr. Adjuster, Mrs. Adjuster, this is just to follow up on our conversations in which you told me that you would be paying me X for X. And then again, we already talked about Xactimate and how that is really, that is the insurance company's starting point. So you need to be able to push back against that. And if you actually have to have somebody on your side to help you with that, either an adjuster or a contractor that can work with those kind of numbers. Yeah. So with the ALE, I think Tim already covered that, where you kind of want to make sure it's going to last the amount of time you're likely to take to rebuild, which could easily be 2-3 years. So don't get greedy. Even if they offered you a ton right up per month, if that means you're going to blow through your coverage in a year, you might want to try to find a more reasonable accommodation to string it out longer. Definitely ask for and feel free to take advance payments from the carrier. Just don't sign a settlement agreement waiving all your rights. it is true that some carriers will try to rescind the policy. We've had that happen in the past with some of our clients, and that's something that, if that happens to you, do call us and we'll look at it. There are provisions in the insurance code that set forth unfair claims practices, and those include things like not responding to inquiries from the insured in a timely manner and things like that. So you can look at that if you want to see what it constitutes an unfair claims practice. But if you've never dealt with this before, Tim and I have done a lot of these bad faith claims. And so the insurance industry as a whole, they are obligated to really put your interests over their interests. That's how it's sort of set forth. So they have to act in a reasonable manner with respect to your claim. And to the extent that they don't, and that could be insisting on like a low ball estimate that is not realistic, that can be grounds to sue them eventually for bad faith. And in bad faith, you get tort damages, including possibly punitive damages if they've been very unreasonable. So so on the deadlines, in a normal breach of contract, it's 4 years to sue for breach of a written contract. But in the insurance context, that's usually quite different because most policies have a contractual limitation period built into them that can often be a year. But that period is told while we're reviewing your claim until you get a denial. And once they give you a denial, then the statute of limitation starts to run, and it's in a natural disaster case that goes for 2 years. But you never want to sleep on that statute of limitations because that is your ultimate ace in the hole to be able to sue them down the road if you can't get to negotiated resolution with them. So this is a big one in the Eaton fire because there's a lot of evidence suggesting that the fire was caused by Southern California Edison, and we have quite a few claims already pending against Edison in the firm for other fires, and we're working on some. We're investigating for purposes of filing claims for the Eaton fire as well. So you will eventually realize there's a lot of things that aren't covered by insurance. One is just your mental suffering and your distress and from losing all your possessions and possibly having to evacuate. If you have a fair plan policy, it means more than likely your personal property is not covered at all. So these are all sorts of claims that can be made against Edison. And we have considerable experience with that. If you're interested in that, please reach out to us and we can give you more information about that. And one of the claims is an inverse condemnation because Edison is considered to be sort of a quasi-public utility, which means you can get even attorney's fees under your inverse condemnation claims against them for the destruction of your house caused by their infrastructure. So I think that's it for the main part of this presentation.
Yeah, that's just the last. But we do have a couple of questions, Tom, and I'll put the first one out from one of our attendees is asked a question: what do we do if we don't have receipts or proof of what was lost in our home from the fire?
Yeah, well, I think you covered that already a little bit. I mean, obviously, most people that have their entire house burnt down aren't going to have any paper receipts kicking around. You may have some electronic receipts that you can bring to bear. You may have photographs or videos from inside the home that show the sort of things that were around there that you can use. And otherwise, you're just going to have to do the best you can to recreate what was in there and hope you have a reasonable insurance company on the other side of that negotiation.
Yeah, I do think going to the registry is helpful because there's a number of department stores that have those registries, and you can kind of go in there and prepare up a list of all the items that you had. And there's a lot of registries in there that will help you kind of trigger in your mind what you had there, and you can come up with a good estimate. So I think that's really a good source. I know it's an emotional thing going through those photos and everything. Unfortunately, we have to do it, but I do think the registries can help you. And I will also kind of comment on what Tom had mentioned. I think it's very important to document your discussions. And one of the reasons why you may have an adjuster today and tomorrow that adjuster is gone and you get a new adjuster. So you want to make sure, just keep a paper trail because you may have the friendliest relationship with an adjuster and then somebody new comes in with a different personality.
Absolutely.
I do think it's important to treat the insurance folks, professionally. Keep it friendly. If no matter how they respond to you, keep a friendly. Try to keep a friendly relationship with them. But obviously, if it goes to the point where you feel that they're not treating you fairly, I think you should hire a lawyer. So, but try to keep the relationship friendly. Try to understand what your rights are and try to get full benefits out of the policy. That's why I think if you're doing a rebuild or even if you want to relocate and get the value of your property, have those professionals hired now so you can then go with a full cost of what your benefits out of the policy with backup from the professionals. Tom, there's another question. Is there a cap on temporary housing coverage that the ALE gives you?
Normally, yes. You just have to check your policy for that.
And one of the things to do is because it'll take some time. I've heard it. People will tell me, "Yeah, I've got X amount of money," and I said, "Well, how long is that going to last you for?" Well, 2 years. I said, the rebuild process could take more than that, so you don't want to be out of your home, and you may be paying a mortgage on that home, and then you're living somewhere else, and then you run out of ALE. So now you're sort of supporting two homes, if you will, and so you don't want to get in that kind of situation. So oftentimes you may want to pencil out that it'll take you 3 years and then just sort of string out the ALE, and don't let the insurance company push you, especially if you're repairing just to a 1 year ALA. Make sure you take into consideration how long rebuilding could take, because a lot of the policies are a fixed amount of ALE. Others have unlimited. That's unusual, but make sure you understand your policy and make sure that you figure out, talking to your contractor, your public adjuster, your structural engineer, how long is it going to take for me to get back in the house? And make sure you calculate your ALE based on that, because you don't want to be stuck supporting two homes. And reach out to your mortgage lender. They're giving 3-month forbearances, but ask them for more. And I think you'll find that they may be more receptive to that working with you.
Yeah, they don't want a foreclosure on their hands either. So,
and I think it's a key. If you keep everybody in the loop, your insurance agent, I know State Farm has very good insurance agents. They're very helpful. They're good advocates for the insureds. Keep the insurance company in the loop, and also your mortgage lender, so they know that you're looking out for them and you're trying to do the right thing, get back on your feet and get the house rebuilt. Question, are you still taking on clients for the Eaton Fire? Tom, you want to answer that one?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's still very early in the game for the Eaton Fire because we're still investigating it, but we're definitely signing up clients for that. So absolutely, yes. Feel free to contact us.
Based on our experience, Edison will not engage in any settlement discussions with the victims of this fire until the insurance benefits are paid. There's some complicated issues there, but normally what we've seen is there's really no resolution with Edison until that insurance is issued. So you kind of want to get that done as quickly as possible. And then with respect to the overall litigation with Edison, there's a number of other components you want to talk about. Make sure whoever you're talking to has handled these cases and has significant experience in this area. We're seeing a lot of attorneys jump in calling themselves fire attorneys, but somebody should vet that and make sure that this person has significant experience. There are very good lawyers out there that are doing these items, and in our view, there's also other lawyers out there that don't have the commensurate experience. Plus, there's mediation protocols that have been entered into in other Edison cases. We have our own thoughts about that, but whether or not those protocols are appropriate, we always fight for our clients to have a right to go to a jury trial when there's when they're damaged, and have a jury resolve that. So there's a lot of components of the Edison litigation and that need to be considered. So if you have any of those questions, give me or Tom a call, or reach out to Diana at our office, and we'll set up a call with you. Another question, can I still file for damages as a renter and not an owner, partial damage to my home?
Unclear is what then. unclear whether they mean if for an insurance loss, if you have renter's insurance, you definitely can. And if you mean, can you sue Edison? The answer to that is yes, you can as well, because you've suffered a loss. The evidence is starting to show that Edison probably caused that. So there's no reason your loss won't be as large likely as a homeowner's, but it's not, if you lost all your stuff and it wasn't insured, then maybe it is a solid, significant claim. But
yeah, and just going back, I mean, my daughter was at the Palisades. She evacuated and had to move out. She did have renter's insurance, and that is covering ALE, the living expenses she incurred during the evacuation process. But they're also covering contents, including cleaning of items and things of that nature. So the renter's insurance, if you do have it, can be really helpful. But also, as a renter and living in that area, you would still have claims for personal injuries, the stress and strain of having to evacuate, and being out of your residence for that period of time. So you would have not only remedies for recovering your lost belongings and things like that were destroyed in the fire, but also any damages as well as personal injuries. I don't see any other questions unless anybody else has any questions. One of the things that we are making available is a PowerPoint that we prepared today. So if you would like the PowerPoint, you can either email me, Tim McGonigle, at tim@McGonigleLaw.net, or you can call Diana Kudin at our office, and she'll provide you with a copy of that. Diana, if you're on, can you give us your email address so people can, if they want a copy of the PowerPoint, you can provide that to them?
Yes, my email is Diana, DIANNA, @McGonigleLaw.net. You can also find it in the QR code links attached to this stream. You will see a link to the PowerPoint.
And you can also call our office at 1-800-713-5260, and it's on the PowerPoint. And you can set up a meeting with me or Tom and have a further discussion about insurance claims or claims against Edison, things of that nature. We're more than happy to speak to you about it. Well, I want to thank you guys for attending tonight, and be safe and be well. And as I mentioned, make sure that go ahead and make sure you follow, kind of some of the suggestions we have in terms of getting things together, getting the proper people helping you so you can rebuild your lives. And that's really most important. And also make sure you protect yourselves to keep your family safe, but also take action in the event that you want to do so, and going after Edison for the damages they caused to everybody. Thank you, and good night.
Good night, everyone.